Hello and welcome to Tim's BMW Repairs and Information. Now, if you've been following my accident series, you'll know that I broke the ashtray by sitting on it. Right, in this episode we're going to repair it. Obviously I've repaired it already. And yeah, it's quite a fiddly job, but we'll go through absolutely everything so you know exactly what to do, how to get it out of the car, for instance, which is quite easy. I'll quickly whip through that now. Yep, to get this out of the car, you can eject the ashtray itself, put that down there. On this part of the tray, it's got this little bumpy thing. It was probably adhered to it at some point, but it certainly isn't anymore. And it flakes off stuff all the time, so put it somewhere you don't mind spoiling. Yeah, and don't fiddle with it too much because that stuff just drops off all the time. Once you've got to that point, there's screws at the bottom of the ashtray, underneath the ashtray. Mine only had one in. The one on the other side is actually the other side of this bit of plastic. I'm not sure if that's meant to be like that, but it is. So one screw out of there, the other two out of that bit there. Okie doke. So the foamy bit out, two screws out, one screw here. Then the back comes out first. There we go, back's out. Slide it up and then pull it forward so that that disconnects at the front. Now what we can do is lean it over. Now as you try and lift it out, what's going to stop you is that loom there. Now that's a connector which will go onto a connector pair. Notice it's got this square thing at the bottom. That's what holds it into the bottom of the console. The bulb will pop back out of the ashtray, well in fact it hasn't, so we'll pull it out ourselves. There we go. I need to replace that bulb anyway. And then this will be twisted in position into the aperture down here. I'll put it back in so you can make sure. There we go. Twist it anti-clockwise, it'll come out. Then the connector pair needs to be separated. We press these two bits together and the other end will come out. There we go, connector pair separated. The only thing we've got left holding this in is the hazard warning light connector. Righty-ho, so connector pair is apart. Yeah, a lot easier with two hands. Then the whole assembly can come out of the car. Once you got to this point and you've got it out of the car, immediately separate the two halves, because this is soft touch plastic and it takes nothing to scratch it. All you've got to do is put it down on a hard surface and it'll be scratched. And I know some people can refurbish this, but I much prefer to keep the original stuff on there. So once we got to this point and it's in your hand, then the next thing to do is to put it on a soft surface and undo these 4 screws here. Right, so here's the ashtray lid that came out. There's one hole here. There we go, that goes all the way through. A pin goes in there, a little plastic pin. And there's exactly the same sort of thing there. Now I thought it was something that snapped off, it isn't. The pins actually come out because you can see it's a through hole. There you go, there's a through hole there. Yeah, this pin was still in at this end. That pin had gone, and I found the pin. It's a rotten videography today, I'm afraid. Everything's going in and out of focus. That's life, sunny day. Yeah, that one I found on top of the transmission tunnel area. Right, I'm going to have to be reasonably quick. I've worked out how this all goes together now. Righty-ho. What's the best way to describe it? Well, let's start with this bit here and the weird looking spring. I'll get behind the camera so I can see what you're going to be looking at. Rightio, so we've got a spring and we've got part of the ashtray. There's a hole that this spring goes into. You can see it just there. So it goes this way round, that goes in the hole. That sits like that. And when this goes back into the housing, there's a landing point for that. Okay, so that's the bit that opens the ashtray lid. See by the force of that. It's really rotten videography, I'm afraid, but you're just going to have to put up with it. Now, in the ashtray assembly itself, you can see there's another, what looks like a spring here. That's actually the bit that stops the ashtray lid opening. Okay, so we're looking at the front side of the ashtray assembly here. And you've got this bit of metal here, this bent wire metal bit, that goes all the way to there and then points in towards the centre of the ashtray. And it goes into the gear, well, the gear section of the lid of the ashtray. You watch how this works. As we move the ashtray, lid to the close position, watch this. And I let go and it goes to that position. That's what holds the lid in position. Press again, it goes up and goes down a different track until it meets the first one. It is exceedingly clever. Now the lid itself has got its own spring, a circular spring that actually puts the force onto the lid in the first place. And the speed that it's opened is determined by this. That is a torque motor. And what they are, they're filled with fluid. And if you put a certain amount of torque into them, they'll go to set speed. So that's how it controls the speed of the lid. So if you've got a torque motor that's failed, when we press the lid down and press it again, the lid will just fly open because the torque motor's doing nothing. Right, so spring is in position. We're going to slowly introduce this. Yeah, it's pig awkward, the whole thing is. And the likelihood is that I'm going to get that spring clip in the wrong place. Yeah, I'm sure to. Put it up as far as possible. Move that over. Right, the end of the spring we're playing with at the moment, you can just see it there. That's got to go in that little hole there. It sort of flops about and then eventually gets in the hole. That is the location for the spring. Then we've got to turn it over and we find that the ratcheting device is in completely the wrong place. Now the thing is, we don't want to bend this much because it won't ever fit again. So I'm going to have to relieve that slightly, get that in position until it's on the track, and then reintroduce it. Oh, this is pig awkward. Oh, I think we got it though. Right, I've took both parts in. Yeah, the bottom of the spring is in, down the bottom there. Difficult to see, isn't it? Yeah, you can see it just there, just a shiny part of that spring. I can now put the larger of the two pins in. This is the one that was in to start with. There we go. There we go. Right, are we sort of safe there now? Is that in the right place? Yeah, that's in the track. The spring is in the little hole down here. Just there. You can see the end of the return spring is in that little cavity. That's where it meant to live. Okay, so we're all okay now apart from that fulcrum point. Does the lid actually work? Yeah, that's working fine. As long as I keep the lid in the right place. Yeah, that's stopped there. Press again. Yeah, press again. And we're open again. So it's just going to be a case of getting that second pin in without everything dropping back out again. And you can see the hole, and you can see where it lines up and everything. Yeah, just getting to it's going to be a pain. I think the best thing to do is close the lid. Easier said than done. Close the lid. Righty-ho, that's closed. I'm going to turn it over. And then, yeah, then it's just going to be a pain in the neck, isn't it? Some sort of long-nosed tweezers or something. I've got some in the... Yeah, I've got some tweezers somewhere. Yeah, you can see why it popped out. Oh, hold on a second. Right, I'm back. Look at those. They're nice, aren't they? So that's good. I'll be able to get the pin down there. Yeah, famous last words. So first of all, how am I going to hold the pin? That's probably about as good as I'm going to get, I should think. Yeah, the cigarette lighter socket's in the way. Quite significantly in the way. Okay. Can I manipulate the lid in any way to get that fulcrum closer? I get it. Oh, there we go. See, now what I've done is I've pushed the lid this way. That gives me an entry point. And as usually with these things, I've got, yeah. Right, pin in the hand, move the lid around, get the pin so it sits. Pin is now sitting in the fulcrum point. Is that as far as the pin's going to go? I think it is, yeah. And as soon as we get it anywhere near that cigarette lighter socket, it has to go at that angle. I tell you what, not that far off at the moment. Probably just a few millimetres off. I can sort of get that to go in. I'll put that down there because you can't see anything and I can't. Oh, look, the pin's just about out again. Oh, that's a piggy nuisance. That was close. I feel it in my bones. There we go. Turn it around. Pin in the fulcrum point. Yeah, the pin is in the fulcrum point. Moving it towards the socket. All right, come on, we can do it. Just got to go in that hole. You can do it. Ha, ha. Look at that. That went in nicely. Yeah, it's just a case of fiddling about. I'm very glad I didn't take that cigarette lighter socket out. Could have gone horribly wrong. I thought it wasn't working then. Wrong side. Look at that. Fully working model if ever I saw one. And we're going to put it all back together now. Hopefully I've got everything lined up. Never know your luck. I'm working on a soft cushion so that I don't damage anything. Yeah, it's imperative with these soft touch plastics that you just take it easy with them. Yeah, I'm going to leave this out of the car now until all the bodywork's done. Don't want to break it again. You see what I'm doing? Yeah. One here. And the last one. Yeah, it's much better working outside than it is in the car. Sun's coming through at the moment, just coming through to the edge of this table. So I'm glad we finished because that sun is really harsh at the moment. 32 degrees today. There we go. That's all back together. Getting the tools off the table. So there's nothing I can scratch this with. And there we go, all back together, looking lovely and fully working. It's a clever mechanism, isn't it? It's very clever. Of course, there's the eject for the ashtray itself, which goes in there. There's a little eject button. That's got its own spring and fulcrum, as you can see here. It's not a spring, is it? It's a bendy plastic thing. Oh, go get you in. There you go, bendy plastic thing for the eject mechanism. So no metal spring, just a plastic spring. Clever, isn't it? It is all very clever, the way it all goes together. There's a spring clip here. That is for securing the ashtray in place. In fact, I'll get the ashtray. Right, I've retrieved that's what goes in the bottom of this part here. It is disintegrating. Whatever that stuff is at the bottom, it's falling off. It got all over the place, that has. So yeah, there's, oh blimey, I'll have to clean that up now. That's probably the adhesive that it was stuck on with. We'll ignore that for now. And here's the ashtray itself. Which way does that go in? Probably that way. There we go, he's in. So that's a complete assembly. Minus the rubbery bit, because I'm not putting that in, because it's just shedding all the time. Of course, I need to get to the screws down the bottom. So there we go, one completely mended ashtray device. Right, putting it all back in again. Yeah, it was very fiddly with one hand. I think what I do is, well, and also don't forget, of course, we've got to be careful all the time that we don't damage the soft touch plastic. I'm holding the camera in one hand because I can't see a way of putting the camera that is going to allow us to see what I'm doing. Righty-ho, which one's the best to connect first? Well, the connector pair is, but we won't fit it to the bottom of the housing quite yet. So put the connector pair back together. At this point, the best thing to do is reconnect the hazard warning light. So here we go. Let's get it to line up. Sorry, I've got my hand in the way. There we go. Press it together. It will try and pop out the front. We will stop it doing that. Hazard warning lights are on already. Make sure the bulb still lights up. There we go. Everyone a winner. Right, that one's in. So the next thing we've got to do is put this into its aperture, but put this bulb back into the slot on the bottom of the cigar light. You can just see the aperture it's going to go into. I'm not going to do this with one hand, I'm sure of it. Pop you back out again. The next thing to do would be to put that back into the oblong hole and then twist it clockwise. That will lock it into place. Now when you put it back, this loom here, the one which goes to the bulb, that can easily get in the way, so make sure it goes backwards. So let's slide it back in again to the front, get the back in. What are we landing on? Well, the speed nut isn't fully visible, so something hasn't gone in properly, but it does feel all right. It feels all in the right place. I think the speed nut is probably off to one side. So there we go. Job's a good one. Then we can screw that one in, screw those two in, and that's it. We're finished with a fully working ashtray and everything. However, I'm not leaving that in the car, so I'll sit on it again. Right, there we go then, all done. Yep, all looking nice. Yeah, and of course I've recorded this at the same time as I did the intro, so that's what you expect. So yeah, fully working ashtray. And what I do now is I put that somewhere safe so I don't sit on it again, and make sure that the soft touch plastic doesn't get damaged, because it's looking fine at the moment. It looks really nice. Excellent. Well, if that helped you, put the thumbs up. And yeah, keep commenting. I love the comments. I'm more or less up to date, not doing too bad. And yeah, keep subscribing, and I'll see you next time.